wants Aurora back, and Michael is going to have to move fast. Let us start with a corporate story, because this one has layers that go deep into the history of Port Charles and the people who have been circling each other in the business world for years. Aurora Media is not just a company. For Drew, it is personal in a way that goes beyond finances or professional ambition. He built that company. He built it from the ground up during a period of his life when almost everything else was uncertain, when his identity had been shaken, when the woman he loved was torn between him and the man whose face he shared, when the world he thought he understood kept revealing itself to be something different. Aurora was the thing he made, the thing that was his. And losing it, piece by piece, through circumstances that were not entirely within his control, has never sat comfortably with him. Now Drew is back on his feet. Literally. He went from a wheelchair to walking out of a lake under his own power, and the fury and focus that have been building in him through months of enforced stillness are looking for somewhere to land. Revenge against Willow and Nina is complicated by his own legal exposure. The path to justice is blocked, but the path to reclaiming what is his in the business world, that is a different kind of fight. One where his past conduct does not necessarily disqualify him from the arena. And the timing could not be more interesting from Drew's perspective. Curtis is facing legal trouble. The situation with the car crash, with his confrontation with Isaiah, with the broken hand and the possible career damage, all of it has created a cloud of legal uncertainty around Curtis that affects his professional standing. Curtis holds a stake in Aurora. And a man whose legal future is uncertain is a man whose business position is potentially vulnerable. Drew, who has spent months watching and thinking and cataloging everything around him, would have noticed that. Drew notices everything. So the picture forming in Drew's mind is this. Curtis's position is weakened. Michael's position at Aurora, while solid, is not impregnable if the right kind of corporate pressure is applied at the right moment. Drew may not have unlimited resources. It is reasonable to assume Willow has not left him entirely untouched financially during the months she was managing his affairs, but he does not need to buy everyone out at once. He needs to find the right lever and apply the right pressure. Curtis's stake is the lever. If Drew can acquire what Curtis holds, combined with whatever he can bring to bear from his own position, the calculation at Aurora shifts. Michael would still be a force, but the dynamic changes. And Drew, who has never been someone who accepts the terms others set for him when he believes those terms are wrong, would relish the opportunity to put Michael in a genuinely uncomfortable position. Here is where Michael's intelligence becomes critical, because Michael is not naive and he is not slow. He has been watching Drew's situation develop just like everyone else has. He knows that a man coming back from what Drew came back from is going to be looking for ways to reassert control over his life and his legacy. And Michael, who has his own complicated history with Drew that goes beyond corporate rivalry into deeply personal territory, is not going to sit back and wait to see what Drew does. The preemptive move that Michael is considering is elegant in its simplicity. If he reaches Curtis first, if he has an honest conversation with Curtis, explains what he believes Drew is planning, and offers to buy Curtis's stake before Drew can get to it, he closes the door before Drew can get his foot in it. He solidifies Aurora's position. He ensures that Drew, whatever else he manages to reclaim in his post-recovery world, does not get to add the company back to his column. The key to this working is the relationship between Michael and Curtis. They have a genuine professional connection through Aurora. Michael has to trust that Curtis will receive this conversation in the spirit it is offered, as a protective move, not a hostile one. And there has to be an understanding that if Curtis's legal situation resolves cleanly, the arrangement can be revisited. This is not Michael trying to permanently shut Curtis out. It is Michael trying to prevent Drew from using Curtis's temporary vulnerability as an entry point. Meanwhile, the deception situation is adding its own texture to the broader corporate landscape. Maxie's departure created an opening. Michael stepped into it, and now Lucy, ever strategic, ever operating several moves ahead of where everyone else thinks she is, has called in Serena to help manage the dynamics. The corporate playing field at Deception is being actively reshuffled, and the arrival of new energy through Serena is going to change the calculations there in ways that ripple outward. Port Charles has seen romantic wars and family wars and political wars. What is coming now has the shape of a corporate war, and those, in their own way, can be just as personal and just as devastating as any of the other kinds. Drew wants what he built. Michael wants to protect what he has. And the summer promised to shake up in the business world of this town that is very much still in progress. Buckle up, because when Drew and Michael go to war over a company, nobody in that building is going to escape without taking a side. Emma finds out about Jocelyn, and the confrontation is not what anyone expected. Now let us talk about Emma and Jocelyn, because the scene that played out between these two young women is one of those moments that reveals character in ways that are more interesting and more complicated than a simple fight would have been. Emma finally knows the secret that Jocelyn has been carrying, the WSB work, the classified life, the whole parallel existence that her friends had no access to, landed in front of Emma with all the weight of revelation. And Emma, who has her own deeply personal relationship with the WSB given everything it has done to her family, did not take it quietly. But here is what made this confrontation so fascinating. It was not explosive in the way that soap opera confrontations often are. It was not screaming and accusations and dramatic declarations. It was a challenge. Emma pushed back on Jocelyn's choice, on the decision to join an organization that, from Emma's perspective, operates through secrecy and deception and has caused real damage to people Emma loves. And Anna is at the center of Emma's argument. Everything Emma has watched happen to Anna, the return that was supposed to represent healing, the reality of what is actually going on underneath the surface, has given Emma a very specific and very personal frame through which she views the WSB. She is not speaking in abstractions. She is speaking from a place of watching someone she adores be shaped and changed and hurt by an organization that demands loyalty and returns damage. From that place, Emma's challenge to Jocelyn makes complete emotional sense. Why would you choose this? Why would you sign up for something that does what it does to people? But here's what Emma does not know and cannot fully account for. Jocelyn is already operating differently than Emma realizes. The moment Emma started pushing, something shifted in Jocelyn that was visible to the audience at home, but completely invisible to Emma in the room. The training kicked in. The professional composure settled into place. Jocelyn went into a mode that Emma, who has never operated in that world, simply does not have the context to recognize. It is not that Jocelyn was hiding from Emma specifically. It is that she has been trained to manage exactly this kind of pressure, and she did it instinctively, and Emma argued against a version of Jocelyn that was already several steps ahead of the argument being made. That gap, the gap between who Emma thinks Jocelyn is and who Jocelyn has actually become, is the real story of this confrontation. Emma came in with genuine feeling, with real concern mixed into the friction, with a history of complicated friendship that goes back to childhood. But she came in without enough information, and she was making her case against a person who has moved past the phase of life Emma is still navigating. These two women have always had something between them that is more complicated than simple friendship and more complicated than simple rivalry. There is a long history of friction and competition and genuine care all tangled up together. Trina has always been the place where their lives intersect warmly, the common ground that keeps them in each other's orbit even when the orbit gets uncomfortable. The WSB is now a permanent new variable in that equation. Emma will never fully trust an institution that operates the way the WSB operates, given what she has seen it do. Jocelyn is not leaving the WSB based on Emma's feelings about it. And the person Jocelyn has become, the agent, the professional, the young woman who watched her friends laughing together and felt the distance between herself and that life, is not the same person Emma grew up competing with. They can be civil. They can be careful with each other. They can keep the peace for Trina's sake and for the sake of the connections they share. But the deep, easy, uncomplicated friendship that might have developed in a different version of their lives, that is not available to them anymore. The choices they have made have taken them in directions that are genuinely hard to bridge. What happens next for Emma and Jocelyn is not a resolution. It is an ongoing negotiation between two people who will keep crossing paths in a town that keeps pulling everyone back together, trying to figure out how much of the past they can carry and how much of the present they can actually share. That is real. That is honest. And that is the kind of story that lands. The corporate shakeup, that has been building all summer is here. And now let us zoom out and look at the bigger picture of what is happening in the business world of Port Charles, because the summer preview that promised a corporate shakeup was not exaggerating, and the pieces are all now on the board. Deception started it. The departure of Maxie and her family created an immediate vacancy in the ownership structure of that company that needed to be filled. Michael stepped in and acquired those shares, which changed the dynamic at Deception in ways that Lucy is still working to manage. Lucy has spent years building that company and protecting her position within it, and the arrival of Michael as a significant stakeholder represents a genuine threat to the control she has always preferred to maintain. Which is why Lucy called Serena. Not out of sentimentality, not simply because Serena is family and Lucy wanted her around, though those things may be true alongside the strategy. Lucy called Serena because she needs a counter to Michael's presence, a friendly vote, an ally within the company structure who can help balance the scales. Serena arriving in Port Charles is Lucy's move in an ongoing chess game that Michael may not have fully realized was being played. Now add Aurora to the picture. Aurora has been relatively stable, with Michael and Curtis as the anchoring presences in the company. But Curtis's legal situation has introduced uncertainty, and Drew's recovery has introduced something more dangerous than uncertainty. It has introduced intent. Drew does not simply want to return to normalcy. He wants to reclaim. And Aurora is part of what he wants to reclaim. Two major companies, both facing ownership questions, both with multiple players trying to position themselves advantageously. Michael in the middle of both situations, trying to protect his interests at Aurora while managing the new dynamics at Deception. Drew coming in from outside with restored capability and serious motivation. Lucy working the angles at Deception with a particular brand of creative scheming that has always been her signature. Serena arriving as a new variable whose loyalties and ambitions have not yet been fully revealed. This is not one story. This is a corporate ecosystem in upheaval, and the individual moves each of these characters makes is going to have consequences that extend well beyond their own immediate situations. Michael's preemptive move on Curtis's Aurora stake, if he executes it, is not just about keeping Drew out of the company. It is a signal. It tells Drew, and everyone watching, that Michael is not going to be caught flat-footed, that he is paying attention, that he has already anticipated the play and countered it before it could be executed. That is the kind of move that establishes dominance in a corporate conflict before the first official shot is fired. Drew's response to that, if Michael does indeed move first, is going to be revealing. A man who has just come back from months of enforced silence and is burning to reassert himself is not going to accept a blocked move gracefully. He is going to find another angle, another lever, another approach that nobody has accounted for yet. And Lucy, operating in her own corner of all this with her own agenda and her newly arrived surrogate daughter as her instrument, is going to find ways to insert herself into whichever drama is generating the most opportunity at any given moment. Lucy always does. It is perhaps her most consistent and reliable characteristic. The summer promised a corporate shakeup. What is delivering is something more interesting than a simple shakeup. It is a full-scale repositioning of power in the business world of Port Charles, happening simultaneously across multiple companies, with multiple players who all have personal stakes in the outcome layered on top of the professional ones. In Port Charles, business and personal have never been separate categories. The deals that get made in boardrooms are always about something more than the companies being discussed. And the war that is brewing between Drew and Michael over Aurora, with Lucy maneuvering at Deception, with Serena arriving as an unknown quantity, with Curtis's future still uncertain, is going to prove that rule one more time in ways that nobody is fully prepared for. Watch the business storylines this summer, sweetheart. Because in Port Charles, the people who win the corporate wars tend to shape everything else that follows.